Greetings duelists and welcome to another video. So yesterday we talked about the new Mimighoul cards and we talked about how this could be implemented into the future of the metagame in Rage of the Abyss. Today what I'm gonna do is cover a little bit of what I found in testing when it came to the new Mimighoul cards. I think Mimighouls have a great foundation. I think their game style and their win condition is already established. I think their game plan is very cohesive. However, there is a bit of a difficulty when it comes to building the deck. What I'm going to show you here is a combo. Obviously, this combo is going to be using all the cards in our hand, but the main combo starter here is Mimighoul Maker. With new play starters like Mimighoul Slime, now Mimighoul Maker has no downside on whatever you try to summon with it. You can pick between Dragon and Slime. You can pick between Slime and Archfiend. You can pick between like other plethora of combinations, and it will just work out. But yeah, I'm just gonna play this replay. This shows between Slime and Archfiend. We already had an Archfiend in our hand, so the Maker was going to always give us the Archfiend. So the Archfiend summoned, the Archfiend flips the other Archfiend. We summon the Throne, Throne summons the Master, Master grabs us the Dragon. We have not normal summon. Master is going to grab us the Room. And you're probably thinking, why do we grab Room and not Dungeon? The reason we grabbed Room is because of two reasons. One, we already have a level 1 extender that we can summon in order to make the giant Mimighoul. Secondly, if our opponent decides to Nibiru us, or to find a way to just contest against our board, Mimighoul Room is going to be another card that is going to serve as disruption and follow-up against our opponent. So we want this card in our hand as soon as possible. This card is really good. When we talk about the deck building portion, I'll talk more about this. But we made the giant Mimighoul. That's going to grab us the dungeon. We're going to activate the dungeon. Dungeon is going to grab us the fairy. We can summon Jester Confit, and again, we'll talk about this in a deck building portion. But I think level 1 extenders are gonna be really good in this deck, and I think Jester Confit is the best one. The big thing about Jester Confit is that special summoning itself from the hand has literally no drawbacks. But let's keep going. We're going to summon IP. We're going to give them the Slime. We're going to set up the room. And this is going to show you all the interruptions that we have. We have the interruption from Throne that makes it so we can bounce a card equipping to Master. We have Master's effect that can flip the Slime. We have the IP Masquerena that can link summon. We have the Mimighoul Room that can set an opponent's monster or give them another Mimighoul. And then we have Mimighoul Maker that will also flip another Mimighoul from them if they try to just overextend past it. Also, take note, where they are under the floodgate effect of Mimighoul Dungeon, which means they cannot normal summon by any means until they get rid of the set card, or just flip it. But yeah, this is the end board. Now let's go to the deck building portion. So this is the first list or draft that I did. Everything after Mimighoul Room is stuff that I was testing like a little bit afterwards. Let's talk about like the initial draft. So you're probably noticing all the level 1 hand traps. The reason we're playing these level 1 hand traps is because with Jester Confit, now these hand traps can become catalysts in order to make the giant Mimighoul. I tried multiple giant Mimighouls. I don't think it's necessary. I think only one giant Mimighoul is enough. You mainly just want to get your play started. If you open another Mimighoul monster before summoning this, you can dodge infinite impermanence because your opponent already controls a monster, leaving it with only Mourner and Veiler as cards that they could use against this card. So obviously Ash Blossom is another one. But yeah, I figured I'd try this approach. It's not in. I cannot say for sure if it's correct or not. Valor is not a high impact hand trap. However, Droll and DD Crow do really good impactful hand traps. So it serves as the utility of just serving as an interruption to your opponent, while also be like a play starter if you open a correct extender. It could be Mimighoul Maker, it could be the Jester Comfort itself, it could be multiple Mimighoul monsters, it could be like other cards in general. And yeah, you should be playing other hand traps like Ash and Imperm, just to give you an example. But for now, I just stuck to this 9. Just a comfort. Like I said, I think this card is the best level 1 extender. You want level 1 extenders in this deck. You could play the Lirlusk engine. You can play Kinkabiyu with Mystic Piper. You can play the Snake Eye cards. A lot of people are hyping this as being the potential engine. There's 1-for-1 where Arvdao. You can play Period Ray map can add you the Jester Comfort, and Jester Comfort special summoning itself is not an effect activation. So there's no drawbacks from playing this as just extra copies of Jester Comfort. And one situation that I did find myself in testing is running out of the Mimighoul names really quickly. And this is why I think Pot of Avarice is a card to be considered. Like, I know it sounds very weird considering a card like this, but like you'll notice after 1 or 2 turns, you're just going to run out of all your Mimighouls. And that situation has come up with me multiple times. So let's talk about the more charming monsters. So one really big upside with this deck is that Foros does little to nothing against our strategy. Granted, they do get draws if we activate Maker or if we activate Slime, but that's about it. Only Slime and Maker are the really important ones. There's also the rank 1 XYCs, but like under Foros, you can just try to play conservatively and maybe just give 1 draw to your opponent while also establishing your engine. Like as long as you get to Mimighoul Room, I think you should be fine. Like Mimighoul Room backed up with hand traps and with the follow-up of Mimighoul Dungeon, it should be enough under a very simplified game state. This is a deck that can play Shifter, so I don't recommend Dimension Shifter in the main deck. However, I think in the side deck, if you know what matchups you're facing, this card could be really, really powerful. So what else can we bring up here? So I've seen people talk about this. They're talking about using Dominus Impulse to just negate Nibiru because they'll be technically controlling a monster if you just let them have set Mimighouls. However, the big issue with Dominus Impulse is you are locked into not activating Earth effects, and all the Mimighoul monsters are Earth. So sadly, this deck cannot play Impulse, which is one big downside to this deck. However, this deck can play Dominus Purge, and I think Dominus Purge is not a bad card at all. If you pair up Dominus Purge with an already activated Mimighoul Room, I think that's going to be really, really strong against like certain matchups. So one discussion that I see people talk about is Mimighoul Fork and whether or not this card is warranted in the main deck. I've seen more negativity than positivity around this card, and I kind of want to give my 2 cents on this. I feel like this card is warranted in the main deck solely because of one reason, and the one reason is the graveyard effect. No matter what your opponent picks with this card will always be a +1. Well, not a +1, but at least a 1-for-1. If your opponent decides to flip the Mimighoul, then like all you're doing is getting the Mimighoul to your side of the field, and then you can just banish the fork, grab another fork, and it essentially just became a special summon from the hand. And if you have other extenders, you can just keep playing the game and treat it as if it was another summon. Worst case scenario, your opponent gives you 2 draws, and giving your opponent 2 draws and then resolving this effect to banish and grabbing another fork is already a +1. So overall, like, trading between cards against your opponent is not bad in a deck like this one, especially since you have a plethora of extenders to work with. The only thing that you need to be wary when you activate this card is be mindful of the Mimighoul that you're giving your opponent and what situation you're giving that Mimighoul to your opponent. If you want your opponent to just give you a monster, you give them a weak Mimighoul. But if you want to like guarantee yourself 2 draws, you give them a strong Mimighoul. Like, your opponent won't want to flip neither Archfiend or Slime. So that's where the fork like comes in and just becomes essentially like a trading like effect for new cards. And I feel like in a deck where you can play a lot of non-engine, that is fine. A lot of people are talking about not needing to play multiple Mimighoul rooms. I think this card is really strong. I think this card warrants the slot in the main deck. Like, imagine Welcome Labyrinth, but with another like interaction with alongside it, and the graveyard effect could also save you from certain situations as well. So yeah, let's talk about King Kabiyu and let's talk about Mystic Piper. I thought about Mystic Piper because all the Mimighouls except Master are level 1, and you don't mind drawing into those Mimighouls. The only issue behind this card is you are exhausting your normal summon, and there is one normal summon that is better than Mystic Piper, and that one is Mimighoul Dragon. But if you want to follow the 5 normal summon rule, I think Mystic Piper is a welcome addition to the deck. Like, just imagine you resolving Piper, drawing 2 cards, and then resolving Fork, drawing 2 cards. You will easily get to your hand traps and into your Mimighoul room. And this seems very simplistic, but that is enough to win the game sometimes. So yeah, this is not the best pick, but it is a pick to consider. Also, this card is searchable by Piri Ray map, so that's another note. So King Kabiyu. The reason I really like King Kabiyu is because not only can it bring back your Mimighoul monsters, it can also bring back your hand traps and essentially just become a copy of Giant Mimighoul by itself. Like, imagine you going second and you just drolled your opponent, and then you just normal summon King Kabiyu, special the droll, and then just turn that into the Giant Mimighoul, and then you start playing the game. Like, that's actually very strong. So this is another normal summon to consider. Again, you want to follow the 5 normal summon rule, and you're always going to play 3 dragon, and there's so many ways to get to dragon. So try to be very minimalistic when it comes to picking these cards. We already talked about Lyrlos, we already talked about Snake Eye, we already talked about level 1 extenders or starters. We already talked about Mulch armies. I think we have everything covered. There are other engines to consider. Like, for example, since all the Mimighoul monsters are flipped, and you do have flip monster extenders now, now you have easier ways to get to Chadol Construct. So let's say, for example, you have like 2 Mimighouls, or you have a Mimighoul Maker alongside a Jester Confit. This is a 2-card combo that can summon Winda. And I don't think I need to explain how strong Winda is, like, against certain matchups. So that's one thing to take note of when you're like deck building. You can also make Chekinaga, which is another card that you can make. The only big issue with the Chekinaga is that Chekinaga needs a Chadol card in your hand. So unless you're playing like a heavier Chadol build or Chadol hybrid, I think it's best if you just stick to Winda. But yeah, this is like a package that you can consider. I went very minimalistic on the Link monsters. I think rank 1s are the way to go. I think you should be playing Zeus, you should be playing Downerd. This is interchangeable. You can play the Lyrlos SYC, not this one, the other one. You can play Recital Starling. I just chose Fucho because Fucho means that you don't lose to Tenpai Dragons unless they have like a specific out for this. And that's really, really good if you know that you're facing that matchup. Like, just making, if your opponent just makes you go first, you just summon this and pass. Like, then your opponent is forced to either establish a board in a certain way or just pass turn to you. And yeah, that's it when it comes to like explanations. Again, Mimighoul is very simple at what it wants to do. It has an identity, it has a game plan, it has a win condition. The biggest issue right now is just deck building. There is like other older engines that people are talking about, like for example the Kashtiras. Like, you can even go on a heavier Kashtira package and play like stuff like Theosis, because you don't care about the XYZ lock. Like, their win condition are 2 XYZs. So I guess this is one other thing to talk about. I'll leave it to your imagination. I think you will find prowess with building this deck, probably a little bit more than I am at the moment. But yeah, until next time, I hope you found this informative to your liking and understanding. Keep practicing and keep dueling.